TG Geeks, episode 191, October 15th, 2018. Starships and Timeships. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery. Sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely, unplugged, and technologically challenged Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenixed,
Yes.
Arizona. Yes.
We're going to Phoenix it.
Right. And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from Seattle because it's raining
Like crazy.
all the time now. I thought
This is the desert.
I'm supposed to be living in the Southwest, not the Pacific Northwest, but it is still Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix, desert city.
Farrakis?
Yes. All right, let's get on with the show.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
In this episode, in the Hall of Justice,
Meanwhile,
we have, this time we got Peter Codron, who's an author. He wrote Starship Mine. We're going to talk about
fabulous. Loved it.
that. Going to talk about that as well as other things. We got our birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, obviously. Everyone's favorite feedback, yay, and TGG discusses DW.
Right.
The two gay geeks.
Discuss Doctor Who.
There you go. Weekly recap. You knew that, but did our listeners know that?
I'm sure they figured. Our listeners are smart. I'm sure they figured it out.
Yeah, and the follow-up items. And I think we're going to just get right to it. And joining us this time all the way from Australia down under, we have Peter Codron, a science fiction author, Australian science fiction author. So welcome to the show, Peter.
Hi, great to be on your show.
Great. So you have written a book that Ben has read, and it's called
Starship Mine.
Starship Mine, or it's a novella, you said. And
That's great.
So tell us, let's back up a little bit in time and say, who is Peter Codron? How did you get into writing, and why science fiction? And then we'll talk about what works you have out there. How's that?
Sounds good. So I'm I originally born in New Zealand and moved to Australia about 20 years ago with my wife and kids, and I've always had an interest in science and science fiction. You know, at the age of 10, my mother kept me out of school and took me to see Star Wars on the opening day.
Oh, good mother.
1977.
Yay. You've got a good mother there.
That's right. That's parenting done right.
Yes.
And yeah, I just have a real love for science and science fiction, and I look at the world around us, and we really do see a dichotomy. These two contrasting forces at work. You know, where on one hand, humanity's trying to move forward, and technology is advancing, and scientific knowledge is increasing, and then on the other hand, there's a lot of people throwing the brakes on. You know, they're scared of vaccines, or they're concerned about
falling off the edge of the earth.
Yeah, edge of the earth, or they're creationists and holding on to myths of the past. And so to me, it's quite fascinating seeing this tug of war happening at a cultural level. And I realized that with my love of science fiction and writing, that writing would be a unique way to be a part of that debate and to be a positive influence. So in all of my books, I try to have science as the hero in the background. Sometimes it's a bit more in the forte. So with my debut novel, Anomaly, it's all about the science of first contact. And at other times it's just quietly in the background, but it's always portrayed in a positive light because I see a lot of these cultural influences really casting a lot of doubts on science and not really realizing just how revolutionary it has been. You know, you look at someone like the great composers of the 17th and 18th century, Bach and Mozart and people like this, and, you know, they had large families, a lot of times 7, 8 children, and only 1 or 2 of them would survive into adulthood.
Right, right.
You know, that is, you know, it's inconceivable to me. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And it's because of these advances that we've had in medical science. So you know, I try to make my science fiction something that is going to you know, really lift the profile of science and try to undo some of the damage that I see happening in culture.
Right.
In your bio, you mention yourself as writing hard science fiction, and yet at the same time, you're also trying to make it, I guess you could say, more palatable for a person who might be otherwise, shall we say, intimidated by a hard science fiction novel like the way Arthur C. Clarke could sometimes write. What are some of the challenges that you've had? I mean, I would imagine that's got to be kind of tricky to do something that's hard sci-fi and yet at the same time that's easily digestible.
Yeah, making hard science fiction easy.
Exactly.
It is interesting in that science fiction as a category on Amazon is listed as science fiction and fantasy.
Right.
And the reason is because the two are very closely related. And a lot of science fiction is fantasy. You
True,
know,
true.
You see Star Wars and there's this mystical force, for example, which is, you know, very much a sort of a magic quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to say, well, you know, actually the laws of science can help rather than hinder a story. A lot of times story writers will, you know, use hand-wavium, I call it, you know, a little bit of hand-waving to get something done, you know, light speed jumps between places and things like this. So that they can
moving at the speed of plot.
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Moving at the speed of plot. Whereas I look at those sorts of constraints and I realize actually, you know, that can really help the story. That can actually shape the story. If the character has to deal with that instead of being, you know, instead of it being something that hinders the plot, it can actually support the plot. I don't know if you saw the Star Trek movie Into Darkness that came out a few years ago.
Yes.
I love the movie, and yet there was a lot of hand-wavium in there. There was one part where I think it was Kirk was on the Klingon homeworld, some light years away from Earth, and he runs into an engineering problem. And so he calls Scotty on his handheld iPhone or whatever it is. Scotty's in a bar on Earth.
On Earth.
They just have this little chat. Oh, you know, plug the Frajana into the what's-it-call-it and you'll be fine. And so, you know, they just ignore this, that could never happen in reality.
And it didn't even happen in the television show. I mean, okay, but I digress.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if they had allowed themselves to be constrained by the laws of science, then Kirk would have had to figure it out himself, and the plot would have been stronger for that.
Right.
So it was a shortcut that actually weakened the story. So I see a lot of this science fiction as taking unnecessary shortcuts for the sake of the plot and not realizing that it actually undermines the plot. That being plausible and, you know, you can still be speculative, you can still look at concepts that are, you know, fringe, but in such a way that is respectful to the science rather than just flippant.
Absolutely. And that's, I will say that I'm a big fan of real hard science fiction. We're both big fans of hard science fiction. And sometimes you look at something and you say, I've seen articles about that. That is, as you said, it's fringe and still respect the science and still respect, the laws of science and still tell a good story. I think it's wonderful when people do that.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about science is it's not restricting at all. Like, if you think about what we have learned scientifically just in the past few hundred years, it is phenomenal, and it is far beyond anything anyone could dream up in their imagination. I did a
just
post
in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a post on Twitter or Facebook this week where I joked about how when you look at an atom, 99.99999% of an atom is empty space.
That is correct.
Exactly.
And so I said, well, it seems my mother was right. There really is nothing between my ears.
That's good.
But that's a concept that, if we didn't know that from scientific research, we would never guess it of our own.
Right.
Because it seems so counterintuitive and it seems so outlandish. So, you can be respectful of science and still have an amazing story that leverages some of these scientific realities that are just mind-blowing and really, well beyond anything that we would have expected had we not investigated these subjects in such incredible detail and leveraged the work of these great scientists over the last couple of centuries.
Absolutely. And as I was saying, even in my lifetime, I mean, I'm 58. I was born in January of 1960, and in my lifetime, the science that has, oh my God.
Oh, it's done more than leapfrog.
We went from, granted, Sputnik was 59, but was it? Yeah, it was 59. But from the day I was born up until today, we've gone not only to the moon, but we've gone to Mars and we've gone to the outer reaches of our solar system. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible. And the science that has, the science that has it's taken to get there, and to think that we have more technology in our iPhone than 1,000 times more technology in our iPhone than what they went to the moon with.
No, okay. And with all of that, I have to wonder, some of the books that you write, do you do any kind of scientific research as sort of I don't know if a primer, but just to have some sort of a basis as to what your subject matter is going to be for that particular book?
Yeah, I certainly do read up on it, and I follow a lot of scientists on Twitter, and certainly stay abreast of different science news. And if I'm writing about a particular subject, I'll go away and I'll do quite a bit of background research and find interesting aspects to it, and then try to portray that in a casual and informative way that helps lend to the story.
With the science fiction stories that you write, and of course science fiction, that in of itself can be very, very broad in terms of subject matter. Is there any, and so with science fiction and with science itself, is there any particular branch or specific area of science that just completely draws you in and serves as a fertilizer for your material?
Physics and biology, I guess would be the two. They're certainly the mainstays. In Anomaly, it was very much about chemistry. So Carl Sagan wrote a fantastic book, and I've got it on my bookshelf here, just right beside me as we're talking, Contact. Which looked at
yes.
how,
we just watched Contact again for
but I've got
like
the book,
27th time.
I have Carl's book of Contact as well. It's an amazing novel.
It is. And in that, he looks very much at mathematics being the common language across the universe. And so in my novel Anomaly, I look at the idea that chemistry could be the common language across the universe. So, kind of a different angle, and thinking about how, something we have in common with anybody else in this universe is the fact that, hydrogen has one proton, helium has two, things like this, and how that could be the basis of forming common understanding between two civilizations.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. There's an episode of Stargate SG-1 that actually addressed that very point. So, but I think you're right that chemistry could serve as the basis of a universal language. There's something else that you do that I find very interesting in your books, in that there's a bit of a, shall we say, I don't want to call it social justice, but there is a social content to some of the material that you write. I mean, for example, with Starship Mine, I noticed that you had a gay male couple in there. That I'm sure that might have a few eyebrows go up for some people. What was the motivation to wanting to go into that particular area?
Yeah, very good question. I had this idea for a first contact story, and as much as I worked it, it didn't click, and I couldn't figure out why. And one of the dangers of science fiction is people get drawn into the sensationalism, lightsabers and Death Stars and things like this. But good fiction is about character. It's all about the people that are involved and the journey that they go on. And it just happens to be in a futuristic science fiction setting. And I think a lot of science fiction loses sight of that, and they put the bang and the explosions become more important than the characters. But really, it's all about character. And so I had this concept for Starship Mine that I wanted to explore, and it just didn't work. And I was sitting on the bus reviewing some notes. I do a lot of editing and writing while I'm going back and forth to work on the bus. And all of a sudden, it just struck me. The characters are gay. That's what I'm missing. I just had a straight couple, and it didn't work. It lacked the depth that should be there. And I realized, well, there's a reason why. What I'm looking for is this element that is going to challenge the norms, challenge our stereotypes and our perceptions. And so then I rewrote the whole story with a gay couple, and it just worked beautifully.
Wow. That's interesting. That's fascinating. So ask your question.
Okay, so my favorite question is, and I don't know if it's going to be the same with you, because you seem to write a lot of standalone novels, and there's nothing wrong with that. Standalone novels can be just really awesome. But when you're writing a book, especially when you're really immersed in the writing process, how much, how can I ask this? Do the characters in your books, do they kind of come to life in your head a little bit? And the reason I ask that, we're friends with a number of authors, and there's one particular one, she lives in Atlanta now, and she said that when she started to write some of these characters, and she's writing a particular series of books right now, all taking place in the same universe, if you will. And for her, she said that the characters actually began to talk to her. And she even went so far as to say that she wouldn't trust any writer where that didn't happen. But so I wonder with some of the characters, because their voices and their identities really come across as very three-dimensional. Especially when I was reading Starship Mine. So at any point when you're writing these characters, do you feel like that you're kind of plugging into them a little bit, and that maybe they're talking to you on some strange psychological level?
That's a really good question. I've done dozens of these podcasts, and that's the first time anyone's ever asked that.
Go me.
I think what it is it comes down to the fact that we are social as a species. So we are all about connections between people. And, I brought this into a story recently that it's a story that's coming. It's actually a sequel. So I wrote a novel called Retrograde, which is set on Mars, and it's about scientists being effectively abandoned on Mars when there's a nuclear war on Earth.
Ooh,
and
dark.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really interesting. And so I've just finished the sequel to that, which was called Re-Entry, and it's currently with John Joseph Adams' books, due for release next year. But in that, I explore the fact of, what is it that made humanity emerge from the animal kingdom. It's really easy to go, well, it's our intelligence. And it is to some degree, but, really what the driving force is society. The idea of banding together. We didn't have the sharpest claws or the longest teeth or the densest muscle mass. All the other animals beat us on that hands down. Our real strength came from banding together.
Building a community.
Sorry?
Building communities.
Yes, exactly. And so we have this real affinity with personas, with characters, and I think that's what comes across in a story. So when I'm writing, I very much feel driven by the characters and wanting to express what they are going through and what they're feeling and how they would react in certain situations. And it's because both myself and the reader are living vicariously through the characters, if that makes sense.
Oh, makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So one of the things that Jeannie talks about is, and it sounds like you had sort of that same revelation, is she says that occasionally if she starts writing something about a character and that character doesn't want to be written that way, it's immediate writer's block, and it's almost as if that character is telling her she needs to go into a different direction. And it sounds like you ran into that with the characters in Starship Mine, is you couldn't get anywhere until the characters told you, hey, we're gay.
Yeah, in essence, yeah. And you realize there's almost a harmony to the story. There's a feel that the story has, and as the writer, you're wanting to be true to that. You're wanting to be, faithful to that. And with Starship Mine, it was all about challenging stereotypes and challenging perceptions. And why couldn't first contact happen with a gay man?
Right.
Why not? And so it's all about saying, well, what would he experience? What would be the challenges that he would face? And how would he deal with the pressure of the moment? And then particularly when things go wrong, as they do towards the end of the book, and how does he bounce back? And very much it's about the character journey. Where does he start from and where does he end? We were talking before, you said, there's a sort of a social element to my writing, and there certainly is. I wouldn't consider myself a social justice warrior so much as someone that sees the big picture on the need for social justice. If you look at history, history has been a long trend towards equality. And it started with princes rebelling against the kings of England, wanting to see justice. They were seeing kings deal with things very, very viciously, very impartially, very biased. And so they demanded laws so that there could be some stability. And then that got passed down to landholders, and then that got passed down to the common man. And then, only 100 years ago, not even that, 95 years ago, women got the vote. And when you stop and think about it, that is appalling. For 99.999% of human history, 50% of the population had no say in what was going on.
Correct.
And so then you get to the LGBT plus community, and you see the same thing. It's an extension of this moral arc towards justice and equality, as Martin Luther King described it. And so I see all of these as different elements of the same phenomena, which is that people are people. We should be recognized as human. I think I made a comment in an email to you earlier that if aliens were to contact us and arrive in orbit tomorrow,
oh Lord,
one of the things that would astonish them is how difficult it is for some humans to convince other humans that they're human.
True.
And it sounds silly when you think of it like that. But whether it's gay people, whether it's immigrants, whether it's people of color, whether it's women, it defies logic. It really does, And so I do see writing as a way of informing people and trying to bring across that concept and further that social move towards equality, which only betters the world. It only improves the world.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about with science fiction is that it doesn't have to become preachy either.
Right. It's just about treating people with respect. Dealing with people as they are.
Mm-hmm. So
not trying to make them into something they're not.
Right. So we talked about Starship Mine and talked about how you had the book Retrograde, and you've got the sequel Reentry coming out. I understand you just finished a book called Losing Mars.
Yes.
And that's a novel. Where is that right now? Is that getting ready for publication at any time?
Well, it's with my editor at the moment, and we're just looking to see whether it is published through traditional means or goes out as an independent book. There's sort of pros and cons both ways. The advantage of a traditionally published book like Retrograde is that it gets on shelves, so it gets to a much broader audience. The advantage with the indie is you can really get things out quite quickly and keep costs down, but you do have a much more limited audience.
Right. I was just looking at Amazon. You have quite a few things, assuming that all of these are yours.
Yeah, assuming that there's only one Peter Codron
author. Yes.
Yes, there is. I've had the privilege of being in a number of anthologies, which I've really loved.
Right.
It's a great way to collaborate with other authors, and a great it's the chocolate box of the writing world.
Right.
Well put. So, with having finished Losing Mars, is there anything that you're going to start working on down the road?
Yeah. Going back to your point about characters, I had an idea for a children's book, which is very out of genre and out of outside my norm, but it was the characters that drove it. I sort of had this thought about how characters could deal with a certain situation, and again, in this situation, I realized, well, these are children dealing with the imbalance between being kids and emerging adults, and adults dealing with them. So I'm working on a story at the moment called Mr. Fluffy Bunny.
Oh dear!
Oh, I love the title.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably been to the detriment of my career, but I tend to write what I'm interested in. So if you look at my books, you'll see everything from alien space tentacle porn to My Sweet Satan.
My word!
I saw that.
Okay. Wow. Well,
one called.
Go ahead.
One called "Welcome to the Occupied States of America." There's some very broad coverage there. I try not to be repetitive. I try to.
Okay.
Well, whatever comes to your mind.
Yeah,
then.
no kidding. Well, with all of that, because you're really got your fingers into a lot of different pies in terms of writing. So, for anybody who wants to know about what you're currently working on, any kind of social media presence, have a website, how can they learn more about Peter Codron?
Yeah, well, to find my books, jump on Amazon and type in Peter Codron. You'll find a whole list of them there. I'm very active on Twitter and Facebook, again, just under Peter Codron, Cawdron. And I also have a science fiction blog called thinkingsci-fi.wordpress.com.
Outstanding. I can't wait to check that one out.
This has been really fascinating. I'm going to have to go pick up several of your pieces that you have on Amazon there and take a look at your work and just eat it all up.
Oh, you had me at alien tentacle porn.
Oh, alien space tentacle porn is one of these. It's a hilarious book. It's comedy. It's essentially me doing a reboot of Men in Black, if you like.
Okay,
I see.
Okay, I can go for that.
So modern take on it, and it's completely off the wall.
That is incredible.
Oh, far out.
Well, Peter, thank you for being on the
Yes.
show. We really appreciate it.
I was so looking forward to chatting with you, and I'm so glad we're able to make this work.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Hi, this is Barbara,
And Bryant Dillon of Fanbase Press.
and you are listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
And here's a few selected birthdays for October 15th through October 21st, 2018. October 15th, Friedrich Nietzsche.
I think, therefore,
Did I disappear? I think not.
I don't think so. I think not.
My favorite. Yeah. Poof.
Then he disappeared in a puff of smoke.
Also on October 15th, Emerald Lagasse. Bam!
Bam!
And
Kick it up a notch.
Yeah. And Mervyn LeRoy. He was he was a director producer at Warner, 20th Century Fox. I mean, just he was all over the place. Was nominated, has the most films nominated, and he never won. He won an honorary, although he had a bunch of actors and actresses.
So people that were attached to his
Yeah.
films won, but he never did.
Yep.
He's the Susan Lucci of Oscars.
Exactly.
How sad.
Anyway, October 16th, Angela Lansbury and Oscar Wilde. Oh, maybe that's why The Happy Prince is coming out. Huh?
Maybe.
Coming out. Huh. And also, friend of ours, Austin Sloan. October 17th, Eminem.
Don't hurt yourself, kid.
Yeah. Eminem. I couldn't even say it right. Margot Kidder, Mark Gatiss, and good friend of the show, Mr. Neil Halford. Happy birthday, Neil. October 18th, Chuck Lorre, who is producer of a number of different shows. Pam Dauber.
Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, there we go. And Don Wells.
Of Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island, yes. And Howard Shore on October 18th, as well as a friend of ours in Los Angeles, Zach Noe Towers.
And his career is doing pretty good in the comedy circuit.
Yeah, he is. October 19th, Jon Favreau, Michael Gambon, and Peter Max. Do you remember Peter Max from the...
The artist.
Yeah. And
his stuff
actually,
was trippy.
It was trippy, and there was a big exhibition of his work in San Francisco at the old museum. The Young Museum, sorry. But where is it? Where is my... You missed it. Anyway, all right. I couldn't resist. October 20th, Tom Petty, Bela Lugosi, and James Chadwick. He discovered the neutron.
Oh.
We just kind of just heard about that.
Watching a
Yeah.
TV show with Neil deGrasse.
Yeah. Charles Ives on October 20th. He was some unusual music.
Very strange composer.
And Jerry Orbach. And Grandpa Jones, who was on Hee Haw. Yeah. Also, friends of ours, Sue Hodge Parker, and a friend of mine from high school, John Derrick. October 21st, Carrie Fisher.
You left us too soon, Carrie.
Yep. And Alfred Nobel of the Nobel Prize fame. And Liliane Bettencourt. She was the heiress to the L'Oreal fortune and ran that for years. Ursula K. Le Guin and Sir Georg Schulte, who was a famed conductor. And most notably for his, some people would say, definitive ring cycle, of Wagner's Ring Cycle. And also on October 21st, Mary Blair, who gave us Alice in Wonderland, as well as the dolls in...
It's a Small World?
It's a Small World.
Right.
Yes. So that's it for the birthdays this time.
this is Barbara Dillon, one of the co-hosts of Fanbase Press's flagship podcast, The Fanbase Weekly. During the Fanbase Weekly podcast, the co-hosts and I discuss the top geek news stories of the week. In each episode, we are joined by special guests from all across the pop culture spectrum to get their take on what's happening in geekdom. Past guests have included Jeffrey Thorne, writer of Leverage and The Librarians, DC All Access's Jason Inman, Debbie Lynn Smith of Chimera Press, Xena Warrior Princess executive producer Stephen L. Sears, Ashley V. Robinson of Geek History Lessons, and many, many more. Join us for an episode of the podcast that celebrates fandoms on a weekly basis. A new episode of the Fanbase Weekly is released every Monday. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or look for the podcast at fanbasepress.com.
Go give a listen to our friends Barbara and Bryant Dillon over at Fanbase Press. You can find that at fanbasepress.com. And now, what time is it? It is everybody's favorite time, or at least yours.
If you say so. Waiting for your finger to leave that mixer. Okay, got some feedback here. Starting off with Dr. Zombie, Monster Family Physician number 14. And we got something from the artist himself, Tommy Cannon. And he's telling everybody, take a close look because bonus monster in the lower left part of the panel. And you're right, I had to look for it.
Yeah.
It was there.
I saw it.
Well, after he pointed out to me, I was mostly looking at the big stuff, that's in your face. But yeah, but then when he pointed out that, so it is. So there's a tiny bit of an Easter egg there. So thank you, Tommy, for offering that. And then a few weeks ago, we did a review for the movie, the 1984 film Dune, and does it have enough spice to be considered good? And got some couple of feedback here. First from Mark Ross, filmmaker in his own right. And he says, love the soundtrack to that film. Couple that with the movie's stunning visuals. The movie is in some ways horrible, but in some ways oddly hypnotic.
Oh, yeah. Why have I watched it several dozen times?
Well, I even say that. I even said that in the review. There's something oddly hypnotic about this film. And he says, you start watching, get pulled in. Mm-hmm. And suddenly some dude is riding a worm and you're cheering him on. Yippee-hi-yay.
Yeah.
And then we got a really interesting concept from your good friend Bill Hensley.
Yeah.
And he starts it off by saying, weirding devices. Enough said. But he goes on and expounds. He says, good perspective here. Dune is one of my favorite books. I get it off the shelf every couple of years for a reread. I was greatly anticipating the movie in 1984. I came out of the showing vastly disappointed. You and every other fan of the book. The pacing was chaotic given the time frames and story arcs involved. On the other hand, most of the casting was very good. Sting stole the scenes he was in. That is true. Several of the other characters stood out as well, in particular the Baron and the Emperor. Emperor was cool. Baron was disgusting. The whole idea of weirding devices used in the movie runs against the Dune concept of development of the person as a combat device. Yes, you're correct. I never understood why prescience and melange, the mental side of the Dune universe, was left in while the physical side was ignored in favor of the weirding devices. This probably should have been a couple of movies, as you suggest. There is just too much scope for a couple hours. Good review. Well, thank you, Bill.
You missed the line. It says, as you say, the movie was a hot mess.
Oh, that's true. I did mess that. Yeah, it is a hot mess.
It is a hot mess. But it's one of those films that I have watched repeatedly since it came out.
There's something, it is very oddly hypnotic. I mean, if you just separate the movie from the book, you're in for a great time for the most part, but it is a mess.
And as you see, we've got comments from several different people. We want to hear from you, our listeners. We want to hear from you if you listen to the podcast, if you go to the website. We do have a website where we run lots of articles. You can comment at the bottom of this show notes article. You can comment at the bottom of any articles. You can comment on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on The telephone, if you want. We have a listener feedback line you can call, and we'll play your comment on air. 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as we always say, please play nice.
This is Mark Biaggi, and you're listening to TG Geeks Webcast. Get your geek on.
A little bit longer.
You like it so much.
I do like that, and I think it's fitting for what we're going to talk about.
Yes, the new Doctor.
There was a new Doctor?
We have a new Doctor, Jodie Whittaker.
The Doctor's a woman?
Oh, please. You've known about this for over a year. Stop it.
Yes.
I mean, we watched the BBC broadcast when they showed the little clip during Wimbledon.
Did we?
Yes.
We did.
We did.
Did we?
Oh, we did.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. And we saw that Jodie Whittaker was taking over the part. In fact, they even showed a little bit of her right at the end of Peter Capaldi's Christmas special from last year. And we've had to wait forever for that to finally come around.
Forever and ever.
So we finally got the first episode of Doctor Who, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, quite literally.
Yes.
Okay, neither of us I did something on the other property that I work on, Fusion Patrol, but this will be the first time that you and I have talked about it. We've written nothing about it for our TG Geeks website at the present time, although we will later on down the road. And we just want to talk about our first impressions.
Yeah, we one of the reasons we haven't written about it or talked about it before is obviously we want to give everybody a chance to see it. I don't want to do any spoiler stuff, and despite what other people have done, I'm just not going to do it. Let everybody see.
Everybody needs to have a chance to see this for their own.
And just for anybody that hasn't seen it, spoilers ahead.
Well,
so skip ahead 15 minutes.
We need to remember that regeneration episodes or first episodes of the new Doctor are always generally controversial.
Yep.
Because everybody was like, "Oh, that's not my Doctor," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So everybody goes through that. So everybody needs to have the time to be able to see it and digest it. But the fact that this is a regeneration into a woman.
Yeah. So, and that actually came about, I think, as a result of the Doctor's wife.
The Doctor's wife. Thank you, Neil Gaiman, for bringing that into the mix.
Yeah, and the fact that the TARDIS is female and sexy.
Yeah, but then we've seen the Master regenerate.
Yep.
We saw the head of the Chancellery Guard on Gallifrey regenerate from a man back into a woman.
Yep. So I thought it was great, and I think it's wonderful that they have chosen somebody that hit the ground running, was
quite literally, might we say,
and was able to take charge and be that chaotic influx Doctor. Mm-hmm. I thought she was good.
I'm going to say yes, I agree. One thing that I thought was very refreshing is that yes, she quite literally hits the ground running, or hits the train running.
Yeah.
I mean, she lands in a train. There's spoilers on that. I mean, everybody's seen the trailer on that, I hope so. But from that moment on, she is take action. It's nothing like what we saw with David Tennant's first episode, where he was unconscious for most of the episode.
Yeah.
I don't care for that. I want to see my Doctor actually come to the forefront. It was with Matt Smith. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because we got to see him,
fish fingers
and custard. But Peter Capaldi's regenerate. I mean, for 2/3 of it, he had no idea who the heck he was, and he just kind of like bumbled about, not really doing much of anything.
Right.
Which was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
But here, she just took off and took charge, even when she didn't remember who she was.
Right.
She had still some sense of what she needed to do, and I liked that.
Yeah, and there was none of this, angst about who she was and what she. It was just like, boom, hit the ground. I have a mission. There's something going on here. We need to fix it.
Right.
Or figure it out.
I personally felt that this felt like a flashback almost. It almost felt like a callback to classic Who.
Right.
Even the chief villain in this episode, you couldn't 100% take him seriously.
Yeah, it was one of those.
Which, again, felt like another callback to the classic Who that wasn't trying to be so ridiculously adult and mature, but it's something that maybe the entire family could kind of get around, even though his calling card was a little bizarre.
Right.
But other than that, I found him quite enjoyable. I found her quite enjoyable.
Absolutely. The story was reasonably. I mean, it was a kind of a fluff story, but it wasn't.
It needed to be.
It wasn't anything too deep, as you say. The villain was interesting. I found it interesting, and I find it interesting that the Earth is a playground for the rest of the universe. At least
has been for some time. And in our little part of the Milky Way, who would have thought? Maybe that's why everybody goes there.
Yeah. Oh, they're so out of the way there where nobody's
going to notice.
Exactly. And then the so-called quote-unquote companions for this episode were really good. There was something telegraphed, and I thought,
we both saw it coming.
No. Anyway. I from the moment she showed up, though.
Yeah, I knew something was going to happen there. I was not very happy about that, but so be it. As far as the three that are there, I like them.
Yeah.
They each offer something totally unique.
Yeah,
and so it'll be an interesting blend.
Yeah, I think because the one female is
that'd be Yaz, I believe.
Yes.
Yasmin.
Yes.
Yeah.
That she's a police officer, I think that's really going to be interesting in playing on the doctor's need to solve things and investigations and all of that. I would hope anyway that they call upon that and not just have her be because just a tag along.
The doctor is somewhat chaotic sometimes, and then you've got the police officer. She's very much order. So it could be some interesting marrying of techniques. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential for some fantastic growth there. My only concern, and this is something that you brought up, and that is, something is missing from the show, shall we say?
Oh, yes. Yes, the TARDIS.
Yeah, the TARDIS. I didn't want to go out and say, the TARDIS is missing.
Kind of like the package that I ordered from Amazon.
Oops. But we're not going to go there.
But we're not going to go there.
Yeah, so the TARDIS is missing, and granted, we've only seen the first episode, so we don't know if it eventually shows up in this next episode or if this is going to be a season-long pursuit.
Oh, God, I hope not.
I don't want it to be.
You have to have the TARDIS. I mean, that. If you don't have the TARDIS, you don't have the Doctor.
Kinda. Yeah. I kind of agree with that. The two go hand in hand. I mean, after all, Sexy did kidnap him. She stole him.
Actually,
in her own words.
Yes.
So, yeah. But for now, only one episode in. I like what I see. I'm very curious to see where this is going to go now. I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah, I am too.
We know very little about this upcoming season, except that there will be no classic villains.
Oh.
Not a one.
Well, okay.
And everything's supposed to essentially be procedurals, as standalone episodes, except for possibly maybe this recurring theme of, where's my TARDIS?
Yeah.
We don't know yet. We're guessing.
Well, hopefully it will work. We have a new showrunner, so obviously he's wanting to put his fingerprint on.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be a huge fan of the whole show, the whole series, including the classic stuff. So
yeah, I mean, we come from the classic era where it was, an episode's long arc, 4 to 6 episodes in most cases, and now that Russell T Davies has come in and we've crunched this down into 1-hour episodes and sometimes arc-ish episodes. Mm-hmm. It's changed the whole feel of the show, and I'm kind of wondering if that will settle down, because it began to be too cumbersome.
It was becoming very cumbersome. Yeah, so we have to wait and see. But right now I feel good about what we've had so far.
Yep, I do too. So I think we'll wait and see. Next week we'll have maybe another talk about the Doctor.
We might
see if we like it or we don't.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
And for those that only listen to the podcast, be sure to go to tggeeks.com. We have lots of stuff. We publish something every single day.
Lots and lots and lots of stuff.
Sometimes it's more than one piece, but we have something every day of the week.
Right. So starting off with Sunday, October 7th, there was issue number 17 of Dr. Zombie, Monster Family Physician from Tommy Cannon.
And I like that because that's kind of like our Sunday
Our
cartoon,
Sunday Funny.
or Sunday Funny, or
Yeah.
the editorial cartoon, or whatever. Just
Yeah,
kind of,
I enjoy it. It's a nice.
He's a good artist.
Oh, he's a very good
And
artist.
he's
He's got. I like his humor.
just enough warped sense of humor that fits right in my.
Yeah, yeah. It works in my wheelhouse.
Yep.
And then on Monday, October 8th, there was episode number 190 of the TG Geeks. On Tuesday, there was a press release for Felicity Tallack drops trailer for debut feature film Impossible to Imagine. But there was another press release that same day about how the two gay geeks are among the finalists for the 2018 Parsec Award.
Yay.
Far out.
In our category.
In our category, yes. Also on Tuesday, there was a review, a visit to the Magic Castle.
Wow, I've always wanted to go there.
Yes. No comment. On Wednesday, the 10th, a review of The Happy Prince, How It Is Faithful and Passionate from Andrea Richoff. And then there's another press release, Members Only, a play by Oliver Mayer, and how it's getting its world premiere at the Los Angeles Theater Center. On Thursday, the 11th, review for First Man. It is intense and emotional from Andrea Richoff. And then Jeannie Koch comes back with 3-episode thoughts for the rebooted Magnum P.I.
You should check that out and see what she thinks.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Jeannie, for your sacrifice of time.
Yes. And then also, there was another press release for Weekend Plans? How about Apocalypse Later Film Festival as an option? And then on Friday the 12th, there was issue number 32 of Hamish Downey's News Sushi, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And then Ro has one of her reviews of Neo Noir is back in Bad Times at the El Royale. And then finally, on Saturday the 13th, Jeannie comes back with another Social Saturday. This time she reviews The English Beat at City Winery in Atlanta.
Yeah, City Winery.
That looks like a neat place.
It looks like a really neat place. I want to go there when we go to Atlanta.
Yeah. Now, another reason to go to Atlanta.
Another reason to go to Atlanta and visit Jeannie. And other things.
And other things.
You can find all these at tggeeks.com as well as entries on our Facebook page. Please visit and comment on those things. We just have lots of good stuff.
We really do have lots
of blow our own horn.
No, seriously. Purely from an objective standpoint, I think we're running some really, really great content.
Some great content. As always, we've got our follow-up items. Check out the widgets on the side of the page. And at the bottom of each article, we've got lots of Amazon ads of things that we support, authors that we support, people that we support, and other things. So check that out. Beth Cato's Roar of Sky is just about to be released in 2 weeks, so a week actually. Oh my gosh. And you can order The Last Son is the first novel by Katie Edwards, and you can pre-order The Hanged Man. He's been posting lots of not little spoilers, just little snippets,
bits here and there, and
on Twitter. So.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to read what he has to say.
Yeah, and we're supporters of Arizona Opera, as everybody knows. The season has started. Check it out at azopera.org if you're here in Arizona. They've got a great season ahead. Check out our restaurant reviews. We got a new category, kind of like what Jeannie did with City Winery. And everybody knows we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers. Please support them by commenting, talking about their stuff, buying their stuff, and just support independent creators.
Yes. Special shout out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter, Michael C. Burgess on Twitter, Human Arkle on Twitter. They each publish paper.lees. Doctor Who Talking Who's is the Doctor Who Fancast Guide. You can find it by searching Twitter at Talking Who. Michael C. Burgess's is the Byronic Semi-Diurnal Aggregator. You can find him by searching Twitter at Byronic. That is Byronik. And the Human Arkles is the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News, and you can find that by searching Twitter at Arkle, A-R-K-L-E. And speaking of Arkle, he has the Shameless Cash Grab on YouTube. All you have to do is just look up the one word, Arkle Studios, and you can find it there. Also, did you have something that you want to add to that?
No, it just, we are featured, our voices are featured in the wrap-up of this season.
Yes. So we're going to give a shout-out to the Facebook group, The Gay Geek, for allowing us to post our episodes on their page. And their URL is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And as always, our most heartfelt thanks to Jeremiah Reeves for allowing us to share our episodes and related articles/content there.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And thank you to everybody that's clicked on the Amazon ads. You can find them at the bottom of the page or the right side of each of our pages. And lastly, we are now on Spotify. Check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday. And please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Up next time, I don't know. We'll have something. We got lots.
We have
of
a lot of interviews in the can. We haven't figured out what's next.
A lot of content coming up, so we'll have something for you. So stay tuned. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links to things we talked about on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Peace.
Cheers.